Some months ago, the algorithm gods blessed me with a topic that I was highly interested in, and I was surprised to see that it wasn't as bad as I thought, but nonetheless, I was certainly inspired to go over it. This article found to me on MSN. It is entitled Six Signs You Were Parentified as a Child and Given Adult Responsibilities When You Were Too Young. There's a part of me that felt like I may fall into this category, but based on this list, I remember feeling that I didn't have it as bad as I thought, but I could identify myself with some of these, perhaps with my own little twist to it. The first sign: parentified children are made to take on adults' logistical and emotional responsibilities. These can include looking after their siblings or mediating their parents' arguments. These children can grow up to have no boundaries and struggle to voice their needs. Right off the bat, to that, I can say that I was supposed to have had a younger sibling that never made it. And I remember that mom genuinely felt sad about it, but she never really projected it outwardly. I personally liked the idea of having a younger sibling because I always thought, oh, I would like to have a younger sibling since my brother doesn't seem to love me so much. Maybe I can have another opportunity with having a sibling. But when I think about it, thank God that didn't happen, because if I already felt neglected, then this younger sibling was going to make me an even more invisible of a middle child. And I think that if it would have been another girl, maybe not too much, because I would have to act as the older sister, be the role model. But if it were a little boy, I just wonder what that dynamic might have been. But it would have sucked for him, because I would imagine this might have been finally the athletic kid that we never had in our family. But if that were the case, then if you didn't have money for me, you don't have money for this little punk. And if I start working, I'm not going to be paying for this little punk's things. But maybe, who knows, that's just me thinking about the worst. But maybe this kid might have helped make my life better. I don't know. I sincerely do not know. If I recall correctly, I would have been about 7, 8 years older than this kid. Number one, you took on way more household chores than your peers. I can say that this one is not entirely true for me. I did have chores, of course, every weekend. In the evenings, of course, we had like mini expectations that didn't interfere with our studies. But it's not like, oh my God, I was slaving away at home. I was in charge of the dishes, I was in charge of sweeping and mopping and washing the screens for the windows and the screen door and whatever the fuck we had, or clean the garage. Nothing like that. It was pretty basic. I feel like it was very well balanced. I used to enjoy, weirdly enough, washing the dishes as a kid, but it's because I was never in charge of the harder, greasier stuff. I was in charge of the glasses, the spoons, little things like that. And I always thought, you guys know how I feel about water in that video I made. So, needless to say, that was an opportunity for me to play with water. It didn't interfere in any way. When it comes to chores, I never felt like I was exploited as a kid or anything. On the weekends, we had to do yard work. That was my brother's thing. I was just in charge of raking stuff, which is super easy, super simple, basic. But outside of that, I cannot say that I was that one kid who, well, my parents are away, therefore I have to be the freaking maid of the house. I cannot say I felt like a maid. Being expected to cook for the whole family? Hell no, I never did that. Always feeding and dressing your younger siblings, which thank God I didn't have a younger sibling, because I'm not sure if this would have happened to me. But if this would have happened to me, I could see how that would have been more annoying. And even if I would have had that younger sibling, I believe that I wouldn't have been convinced into having kids anyway. I had already made up my mind by that point. Something a parent would normally do. feeling solely responsible for their siblings or parents' physical well being. I can say that my mom took good care of herself. The only time I found myself having to do anything resembling care toward her was when she had her procedures in recent years, but that was approaching her elder years. But as a child myself, I have no recollection of having to be there to be my mom's emotional support. Maybe I was, and I just didn't know that I was. Maybe I served as a distraction, especially with my curiosity. I was always asking her questions. She was always orienting me. So I think that she maybe appreciated the fact that she got to be my leader, especially because I was requesting it. That would be a good question to ask her, actually. But if I had to deduce, I want to say right off the bat, that's probably what she felt. You provided constant emotional support to your parents. I don't remember seeing my mom cry when I was a kid. I do remember seeing her mad and stressed, but actually crying, bawling her eyes out. I ran into her crying by accident, but I was shielded from it. She used to teach at the same elementary school I was attending, and I just so happened to walk into the office, and she happened to be there, and she was bowing her head, and one of her colleagues was kind of like kneeling next to her as if consoling her. And it's not like my mom was crying loudly or anything, but I did get to see that her face was red, tears were streaming down her eyes. If I remember right, that's when she got news that one of our family members had passed. I want to say that's when she found out her grandfather passed, because I vividly remember that that was the conversation that we were discussing, that some family members had passed. And not only that, but I don't know who passed on first, if it was my aunt or if it was this great grandfather. But I know that that same week, we had two family members viewings. We had our aunt, one of our aunts, and we had our great grandfather, well, her grandfather. And that was pretty intense because I'm like, wait, these two people are family members and we have to view them at the same time? This is crazy. I wasn't particularly close to any of them. If anything, I learned more about my great grandfather in recent times, now that he's been gone. By recent times, I mean the past 10 years or so, and he's been gone for many, many years now. But yeah, it's one of those things. I only remember that being the time that my mom cried, and if she did any other kind of crying, I'm sure she held it together until nighttime. And in the privacy of her room, maybe that's when she let it all out. Or maybe anytime she would go out, she maybe had like therapeutic sessions with her friends and whatever. But I cannot say that I ever felt like I had to be there consoling my mother, giving her tissues and hugging her and all that type of thing. If anything, I think she might have been offended if she saw her children recurring to that. I don't think she was like that. I feel like children like that should be reserved more for movies. I think the idea of a kid being your emotional support is cute, but I don't think it's ideal because you are a parent. You are a figure of authority and you have to manifest as such. If you're going to give me the image of this crumbly person, then I'm going to begin to perceive myself as a crumbly person. And I don't think that's helpful. The description under this is: this could be a parent venting to you about other family members or expecting you to cheer them up when they had a bad day at work instead of giving you space as a child to express your own emotions. Nope, no recollection of that. Mom was never really someone who gossiped, really, and any bad thing that she had to say about another fellow teacher or coworker, it was something like, I believe that her students are not doing well because maybe this is a technique she should try, or this is a assignment that maybe she should wait until a little further into the semester to assign. But no, little things like that. Professional critique kind of thing. When it comes to family drama, there is a ton of family drama. But I cannot say that she was going over that drama with me. I think she did that more so with my brother because my brother knew the family as a whole better. He's older. But with me, I just do not recall that drama seeping into my life and it affecting me. You were forced to referee your parents' fights. Weird note about that is I cannot say I have ever witnessed my parents fighting. Let it be physical, let it be verbal. And from what I understand, a lot of verbal and physical fighting took place when they were together. I didn't see any of that. Whenever they did have, I guess, discussions and arguments about us, if anything escalated, it was handled away from me, or the frustration might have been expressed with composure. Let's say that they were actually insulting each other or being snarky toward each other or legit hateful to one another. Maybe if I was within the proximity to where I could have heard any of that, maybe they could have said it something like, "You little bastard, you motherfucker, this is why I hate you, and this is why you deserve to be as far away from us as possible." Something like that. See what I mean? As opposed to, "It's because you're a goddamn motherfucker, blah, blah, blah." Like, I never heard any of that. Maybe they did have their fights, but they were like silent fights. I guess they were able to keep their fierceness under control. But if I were to say that I witnessed my parents fighting and doing all that shit, I would be lying. Maybe over the phone, maybe they had their displeasures, and let's say while I was in school and mom was in school, maybe he called her or something like that and they had a fight. Maybe that happened. I'm not going to sit here and say that my parents never had issues after they got divorced, because they did. But I feel like their issues were usually secondary issues. It was someone else said something stupid, and one of my parents was impressionable to believe in that stupidity and take action based off that stupidity, and then it backfired on them. See what I mean? That's why I say be hard to impress and be hard to be influenced by external factors. But yeah, I can say that I never in my life had to intrude between my parents. Using a child to relay messages to the other parent, making their kid act as a referee in a fight, or using them to make the other party feel guilty, it doesn't mean all children who witness their parents fight were parentified. If you saw your parents calmly disagree about something at the dinner table and intervene, that's very different from your parents deliberately involving you in a conflict. And my father was so useless and absent anyway that even if an episode like this wanted to happen, it probably wouldn't have happened, because he wasn't present enough for this to be a possibility. So maybe, who knows, maybe when I was an infant, they were fighting like this, but they had split far apart enough to where by the time I grew up to have enough conscience and sense of things, this didn't have a chance to happen. So I can say I dodged that. You struggle with setting boundaries. Now, you guys know that my boundaries are way too high, way too reinforced, and I think I have too many boundaries sometimes. But sincerely, I would rather have extra boundaries and feel comfortable and safe than I am dropping my guard, destroying some boundaries, allowing people to cross certain lines, and I'm uncomfortable with it and unhappy with it, but in the name of I have company, I'm going to justify it. Like, no, no. My boundaries are well justified. It is what works for me, and I will continue to do it. It's going to impact every single sector of your life: romantic relationships, friendships, your career, and certainly your finances. And you guys know that with my career, my boundaries are super extra, because although I may occasionally drop it a little bit and be like, okay, I'll go out of my way to assist, like I did a couple Mondays ago, and pick up a couple of hours at nighttime when I'm not supposed to, I can say that I go often enough not doing that to where when I do it just once, it's more for funsies, and I get to diagnose the fact that this is truly something I cannot do, experience the disaster, and be like, okay, this is why I cannot do it, shouldn't do it, and won't do it. Sometimes it's good to drop that boundary and try it out just in case your life has changed and you can actually handle that. But I rediscovered why that boundary needed to be in effect from the start. With friendships, I don't have really that many to manage anyway to be worried about. And if anything, the other side of my friendship they, I feel, make it easy for me to cross their boundaries. I just refuse because I also have my own position to protect. Just because you're opening the door for me to be involved in your life like that, it doesn't mean that I should, because it may send off wrong messages, or I wouldn't want for there to be misunderstandings, or I don't want you to create this as a normal sense, like just because you feel like I earned your trust and you're inviting me into your personal world like that. I wouldn't want to spoil you like that to where you feel that just because you can do that with me, now all of a sudden you think that you can do that with everybody. And if I'm not clear on what I'm trying to say, have you guys ever met someone who's so genuinely nice, genuinely sweet, extremely naive while being super nice? They were abused by a genuinely bad person, like a narcissistic person, a manipulative person, someone who pretends to care for you, but it's because they're benefiting from something you have, like, say, a business or anything like that. Those are the people to worry for. And I feel like some people may need help managing that. It's good that you are a great friend for them, but I think you should also subliminally train them into protecting their boundaries, establishing them, defending them, and knowing when to drop their guard. Sometimes I feel like some people are so lonely and desperate for that kind of connection that they want to artificially get there by accelerating the rate in which they get there, trying to project onto the other person that they're really easy to get along with. But I think that's a red flag. If you don't have boundaries, that's a red flag. If you have too many boundaries, that's definitely a red flag. But I think it's important to understand, say, someone like me with a lot of boundaries, why I have them. It's because it suits my personality, it suits my goals, my lifestyle, my intent. I'm not struggling. Now, if I were struggling, then I would need to reevaluate that. But I feel like there are some people who are struggling in some ways and they think that dropping their boundaries is a solution, but that ends up hurting them. Made sense? Good. Parentified children may be less likely to ask for raises, push back on unfair treatment, or pursue whatever they truly want because other people's opinions influence them too easily. Like I have always said, be hard to impress. By extension, be hard to influence. You pride yourself, number 5, on having no needs. This one I can't say I struggled with for a little while. And I think that in my channel, I have predicted that many times. You grow unaware of your needs and wants because you learn very early on that your needs and wants don't matter as much as the needs and wants of the caregivers. And yes, I did have my season in which I felt that way from time to time, sometimes, even to this day. I may have like one season, maybe like once every literal season, once in fall, once in winter. That seems to be like the time frame. I'll have feelings like that. Maybe it's because sometimes I get my depressive episodes just creep up on me sometimes because I'm not perfect and I have been handling all of this on my own by myself. I think I'm doing pretty good, but I do acknowledge when that's happening, and I guess I have grown enough of a spine to be like, no, I do freaking matter. Just because other people made me feel like I didn't, and other people just wanted to use me because of my abilities, it doesn't mean that I'm existing to be enslaved away, to be someone else's advantage. And I guess that's where my attitude towards work comes from. My whole attitude about I'm not going to allow anyone to exploit me to further themselves. The idea of, let's say that for whatever reason, I'm really good at coding and I have abilities that no one else just has. And if they have it, they're not easily found. Like, let's say that I'm a 1 in every 300 million people talent. Well, just because I am that rare of a talent, it doesn't mean that I'm interested in helping you further your tech dreams, your tech goals. You don't know me, and I don't know you. We don't have a relationship. So, why would I allow for you to use me because you have resources and you'll give me enough resources that I'm not interested in nor impressed by, such as no amount of money you can pay me is going to make me happy, just because you're thinking that the only thing you have to offer for me is a lot of money that no one else with my, I guess, similar skill set will reach. Therefore, I gotta be submissive to you. Like, no, I only allow myself to be subjugated enough for me to be able to feed myself and have this little roof over my head that's fucking falling apart. But I think that I like to live within what I actually desire. Everything that I have wanted, I have. I wanted leggings, I wanted dessert, I wanted, let's just say, my yummy favorite foods. I wanted recreation, and I wanted some pieces of technology because they're cool and fun. I wanted a musical instrument, I have it. I wanted a vehicle, I have it and maintain it and insure it. I have everything that I have ever wanted. Why would I want more things when it has never been my idea to have more things? I don't want to travel. I don't want to have fancy nails. I'm done. Like, I feel fulfilled. I didn't want kids. I already have a pet. I would prefer a dog, but I think that realistically, a cat is what's most practical for me. Like, I'm not living life feeling like I have losses. I live fulfilled. I also wanted to be involved with someone in my personal life. I have that too. There's nothing you could offer me to convince me to work for you, to using my unique, relatively rare talent. Nothing. Even if my life depended on it, you couldn't convince me. You can't buy me. This, as soon as I made peace with that fact, with the fact that just because I'm not ambitious, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. That's when my inferiority complexes were cured. I had those problems. I don't have them now. And that is something that makes me super proud. I went from being this pushover who you could emotionally hurt deeply to the point of crippling me to this person who can legit recover and bounce back from bad times. Like when I have situations at work that devastate me, I'm like, okay, let me have my 10-minute meltdown or however long it takes. I express myself. I am supported, heard, coached if necessary. And I bounce right the fuck back. And you guys wouldn't find out unless I tell you about it. That is something to be incredibly proud of. Other people who are supposed to be more established than you are still not able to take accountability. For instance, have you ever heard of parents who are always talking about how their kids are not excelling and it's the school's fault? And I'm like, okay, where you're at, parent? Oh, too busy working? I get it. You need money. But just understand that in your pursuit for money, your home is being neglected. You can't be proud of that. You cannot blame the school for your child flunking. A child's success in education is the collective effort between the school and the home, the parents. So you need to figure that shit out. Number 6 is you're drawn to people who ask too much of you. I can say that this is also an issue that I don't have. Because they're used to doing so much in their relationships with their parents, parentified children can seek out relationships that recreate a similar dynamic. They get into relationships where they are unconsciously drawn to people who expect them to meet gaps in the relationship. Clients who were parentified usually have to work on restoring balance in their relationships, which starts with them figuring out what needs they have in the first place. I have ended up mostly involved with people who sometimes worry me because of how they never ask for anything or they never seem to need help with anything. And while I am an absolute advocate for you being truly independent, have your life together, be organized, have your finances organized, have your personal matters organized, your documentation organized, whatever the fuck, I'm also someone who believes too that it is possible for you to not realize that you may need to be drawn to someone who does not ask for much from you. Because this person who's not asking for much from you, maybe they too have a trauma in which they're supposed to be asking for help that you can very easily and gladly provide, but they have troubles of their own that impedes them from expressing themselves. That is just as bad as being drawn to the person who asks too much. It's a very similar kind of consequence, if you ask me, but the dynamic is just going to look and feel a little bit different. I feel like the person who doesn't ask for much from you, it may make you feel like you're not useful, like you're just wasting time, wasting space in their lives. And I think that sometimes it's nice to allow yourself to start drowning a little bit and then have that rescuing hand pull you out just before you start ingesting that drowning, that water volume that you need to actually begin to like shut down and things. I think that it is important to recognize when someone is being unreasonable. Someone should already know and understand what you can and cannot give, what you should and shouldn't give. There are things that, for instance, I, as a woman, will be able to do. There are things that you shouldn't expect from me. For instance, work as hard as I do. Do you not care for me? Do you not care about my physical health and well being? If you don't care for me now that I'm healthy, when I become disabled because of what you're expecting out of me, are you gonna be there, excited and willing to support me because I broke my damn spine trying to have a similar output to you? Are you gonna be proud of that? No? If you're going to see me as a burden when I become disabled, maybe take care of me and don't demand those stupid things from me. But the opposite is also true. I, as a woman, I understand where my boyfriend's at. He works a lot and he also does a little part time side gig. I am in no way going to expect for him to be here monitoring every detail of the home. I'm not going to be expecting him to be housekeeping. I'm not going to be expecting him to be taking care of Dusty to the extreme, anything like that. It's okay. Based off what you have available, this is what we can count on. Based on what I have available, this is what you can count on. And I think that some people have begun to neglect their homes because they're all proud of having their little hustles and careers and shit. But then you go to their homes and it's a hot mess, or their homes are empty because they can't handle making it grow. I think that's bad. I think when you meet somebody who's asking too much of you, you can either tell them, hey, stop, these are my limits, or goodbye, off you go, nothing to see here. There has to be a compromise. And it shouldn't be one in which you're losing. If you're losing, you have to fight it, fight to resolve it. Declare what the imbalance is, what the issue is. And if your partner is not interested in making it work with you, send them to hell. You deserve so much better. Well, there you guys have it. That's my opinion on this article. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on this one. And like I said, I don't know if it's because of the recent events that have taken place in my life. For the past, let's say 2.5 years, when I felt my transformation. But had I read this maybe uh 3 years ago, maybe I would have felt like I might have been parentified as soon as I saw the title. But actually reading into it, it helped me realize that I was able to escape my childhood unscathed from this perspective. So it's not as dark and tragic as maybe I have made it sound in the past when I dig into specific issues I had with my parents, but at least I can say this was not one of them. It's one of those things that I guess I could credit to, yes, I did have things that messed with me during my development time, but fortunately, it wasn't one issue after another, after another, after another. There were areas in which the adults in my life protected me very well, and I will always give them credit where it is due. Okay, that's it. Bye.